People often think that success only comes to those who are born with something special. Special talents, a special family, or special intelligence. But let me tell you something honestly. I was born with none of those things. My name is Jack Ma, and I came from a very ordinary family in Hangzhou, China. When I was young, no one ever believed I would become anything in life. My parents were traditional musicians, we didn't have much money, and we lived a simple life. I wasn't a brilliant student either. I failed my math exams again and again. I failed primary school twice. I failed middle school 3 times. I failed my university entrance exams twice. Everywhere I went, failure followed me. People used to laugh at me. Teachers told me I was slow. My classmates mocked me. They said I wasn't smart, that I didn't have what it takes to make it in life. Sometimes I believed them. Sometimes I didn't. But I never stopped trying. I had one thing they didn't have. I had curiosity. I had hunger to learn. I didn't want to live a life just to survive. I wanted to understand the world. That's why, at the age of 12, I started waking up early and riding my bicycle 40 minutes every morning to a hotel where foreigners stayed. I would offer to guide them around the city just so I could practice my English. I did this for free, not for money, but for knowledge. I did it every single morning for 9 years. It became part of my identity. One day, a tourist I regularly guided gave me the name Jack, because he couldn't pronounce my Chinese name, and that's how Jack Ma was born. That was the first small sign that I was connecting to the world in a way no one around me was. Even though I failed in school and couldn't understand numbers, I understood people. I listened, I learned, I grew. When I finally got into university, Hangzhou Teachers Institute, it wasn't the best university, but it was a chance. I studied hard and became an English teacher. My salary was just $12 a month. It was barely enough to survive, but I gave my heart to teaching. I enjoyed talking to students, helping them grow, encouraging them to believe in themselves even when the system didn't. I knew what it was like to feel invisible. After graduation, I thought things would improve. I thought maybe I'd finally have a stable job, some respect, a path forward. But then came more rejection. I applied to over 30 jobs. Every single one said no. I went to the police department, rejected. I applied to work at a hotel, rejected. The most famous rejection of my life was from KFC. When they came to China, 24 people applied in my city. 23 got the job. I was the only one who didn't. Rejected again, I laughed. What else could I do? It almost became normal. Rejection was a routine part of my life. But there was something inside me that never gave up. Something that said, Jack, your time will come. Just keep going. I tried many things. I started a translation agency, but it didn't go well. I tried creating websites for local businesses, but people didn't trust the internet yet. I didn't know how to code. I didn't understand technology. But I was always looking, always observing, always asking questions. In 1995, I traveled to the United States for the first time, and there I saw the internet for the very first time. A friend showed me how you could type a word into a search engine and get results from all over the world. I typed beer. I saw results from Germany, the US, and other countries, but nothing from China. Not a single Chinese business online. That's when something clicked. I realized China was not present in the digital world, and I said to myself, this is it. This is the future. If we don't get online now, we'll be left behind forever. I returned home with that fire in my heart. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have any money. I didn't have support. But I had a vision. I started my first internet company called China Pages. It failed. No one believed in it still. I kept learning. A few years later, in 1999, I gathered 17 of my friends in my apartment. I told them, let's build something that helps small businesses in China connect with the world. They looked at me like I was crazy. We had no money, no experience, no connections. No one trusted us, but they trusted me, and I trusted the dream. That was the birth of Alibaba. We didn't even have a bank account when we started, but we had energy, we had vision, we had each other. Looking back now, people think we were geniuses, but we weren't. We were just a group of ordinary people with extraordinary determination. That's the message I want to give you. It's okay if you're not from a rich family. It's okay if you're not the smartest in class. It's okay if people reject you, ignore you, laugh at you. What matters is whether you keep going, whether you stand up after every fall, whether you believe in yourself even when the world doesn't. That's what separates those who dream from those who build. Every time life told me, "You can't," I whispered back, "Watch me." And I kept walking. Success doesn't come from intelligence. It comes from resilience. From the willingness to work when no one is watching, to believe when no one is clapping, to prepare even when no one is calling your name. So if you're sitting somewhere, feeling broken, feeling behind, feeling rejected, let me tell you, you are not alone. I was that person too. But I never let the world write my story, and neither should you. If I were to tell you how many times I was rejected in my life, you might laugh at first, then feel sad, then maybe wonder how I'm still standing. But that's the truth. Rejection shaped me more than success ever did. After finishing my studies and graduating with a degree in English, I was full of energy and hope. I thought life would begin. I thought people would see my value. I believed opportunities would come running toward me because I had finally overcome my academic failures. But reality hit me hard. I went from door to door looking for jobs. I filled out application after application. I smiled, wore my best clothes, answered every interview with honesty and effort. And every time, I was told the same thing. "Sorry, you're not what we're looking for." Rejected. Over 30 jobs, and not a single yes. I went to apply to be a waiter, a receptionist, a salesman, a clerk, anything I could find, and I was told I wasn't fit. Some employers didn't even let me finish my sentences. I remember one man looking me up and down and saying, "You don't have the right look for this job." What was the right look? I didn't know. I only knew that I was trying. One of the most famous rejections in my life happened when KFC opened in my city. It was a big deal. A global brand coming to China for the first time. They were hiring. 24 people applied. 23 were hired. I was the only one who didn't get selected. Even today, people laugh when I tell this story, but I want you to understand what it meant. It wasn't just about a job. It was about constantly being told, "You are not enough." It was about feeling invisible, about wondering, what is wrong with me? I started to doubt everything. Was I really that useless? Was I too awkward? Too thin? Too strange? Rejection is painful, but what hurts even more is when you start agreeing with the people who reject you. That's where most people break. That's when most people quit. But I didn't. I allowed myself to feel sad, yes. I allowed myself to feel broken. But I didn't allow myself to stop. I reminded myself that rejection is part of the journey, not the end of it. I once heard a quote, "Every no brings you one step closer to a eyes." I held onto that idea. I turned rejection into fuel. I told myself, maybe I'm not meant to be hired by others. Maybe I'm meant to build something of my own. At the time, I had started a small translation agency with a few friends. We offered English to Chinese translation services. Business was slow. Most people didn't care. But it was a step. We were trying. Around that time, I got invited to the United States to help with a project. While I was there, I had my first encounter with the internet. My friend typed the word beer into a search engine. We saw results from countries like Germany and the United States. Then we typed China. Nothing came up. No websites, no listings, nothing. It was as if our country didn't exist online. I was shocked. At that moment, something inside me clicked. I realized the internet was going to change everything. Business, communication, life itself. And China wasn't part of it. That realization gave me a sense of mission. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew I had to bring the internet to Chinese businesses. I returned to China with this fire in my heart. I tried to talk to people about it. Most didn't understand what I meant. Many laughed at me. "What is this internet thing?" They said. "No one uses that here. You're wasting your time." But I had seen the future, and I couldn't unsee it. I launched my first internet company, China Pages, to help businesses get online. It failed. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have a proper team. I was too early, but I didn't stop. Instead, I learned, I read, I listened, I failed, but I failed forward. In 1999, I called 17 friends to my apartment. We sat in a small room with old furniture and no air conditioning. I stood in front of them and said, "Let's build a company." Let's help small Chinese businesses get online and connect with the world. Some of them were skeptical. Most of them had no tech background. I didn't either. But I had passion. I had vision. I believed we could do something big. We called the company Alibaba. Why Alibaba? Because it's a name known around the world, simple to remember, and it stands for opportunity. Open sesame, that magical phrase from the story, became our spirit. We wanted to open the door for small businesses. We didn't have money. We didn't have fancy offices. We didn't have investors. But we had trust in each other. We worked day and night with no salaries, no guarantees. We faced rejection after rejection from banks, from partners, from investors. One investor told me, "You don't have a business model. You don't have a chance." Another said, "You're wasting your time." But we kept going. When people asked me, "Jack, how can you keep pushing after so many failures?" I told them, "Because I'm used to it." Rejection became my training ground. I wasn't afraid of hearing no anymore. In fact, I expected it. But every time someone said no, I looked for the lesson. I asked myself, what can I do better? I didn't let rejection define me. I let it refine me. I always say, if you don't give up, you still have a chance. Giving up is the greatest failure. I want everyone listening to remember that. You don't fail when someone rejects you. You fail when you reject yourself. You fail when you believe that rejection means you're not worthy. But the truth is, rejection is part of the process. It's life's way of testing you. Life asks, how bad do you want it? And every rejection is your chance to answer. I was not a genius. I was not rich. I was not powerful. I was rejected more times than I can count. But I am still here. I'm still building. I'm still believing. Because I understand one simple truth: rejection is a redirection. Every door that closed pushed me toward a new one. Every no led me to a better yes. And I'm grateful. Without rejection, there would be no Alibaba. Without rejection, there would be no Jack Ma. So the next time you face rejection from a job, from a person, from society, remember this: you're not alone. I was there too. And if I could stand up again and again, so can you. Don't be afraid of no. Be afraid of stopping. Because the more you move forward, the closer you get to the moment when someone finally says yes. And sometimes that someone will be you. When I look back at how Alibaba began, it doesn't feel like a business story. It feels like a story of survival, belief, and absolute madness. I didn't start Alibaba because I knew what I was doing. I didn't start it because I had funding or a degree in business or support from powerful people. I started it because I saw something that others couldn't see yet, a future where the internet would become the heart of global business. In 1999, China didn't trust the internet. Most people had never used a computer, and businesses still relied on face-to-face deals and handwritten ledgers. Talking about putting small Chinese businesses online felt like talking about magic. But I believed in that magic, and so I invited 17 of my closest friends and former students to my apartment. That apartment wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. The walls were old. The chairs didn't match. And we didn't even have proper desks. But we had one thing: belief. I stood in front of them and said, I know you don't understand this fully, but I see something. I believe one day every business will need to be online. And if we help them now, if we build a platform just for them, they will grow, and so will we. Some of them looked at me like I was crazy, but most of them trusted me. They said, Jack, we don't get it, but if you believe, we'll follow. And that's how Alibaba started, not in a corporate office, but in a living room filled with doubt, hope, and raw ambition. We didn't have any money. I had no bank account for the company. We used our personal savings to buy a slow internet connection and a basic website. We didn't have laptops for everyone. We worked in shifts. We borrowed whatever we could. But we were committed. In those early days, we made countless mistakes. We promised businesses that we could make their websites visible to the world, even when our technology was still basic. We didn't know how to scale. We didn't know how to hire. We were learning while building. Every day we faced a new problem: server crashes, coding bugs, slow responses, payment issues. But we kept going. When competitors laughed at us, we kept going. When friends said, you should quit and get a real job, we kept going. When investors said, Your idea is not scalable. We still kept going because we weren't just building a company. We were building a belief system. We believed in small businesses. We believed in people like us, ordinary, hardworking people who didn't have the power to fight against big corporations, but had the courage to try. And we knew that if we could give them a platform, they could thrive. But belief alone wasn't enough. We needed resources. We needed funding. So we knocked on every door we could find. We pitched our idea again and again, to banks, to investors, to anyone who would listen. And most people rejected us. They looked at our team and said, "You have no experience in tech." They looked at our balance sheet and said, "You have no profits, no revenue model." They looked at me and said, "You're an English teacher, not a CEO." And every time I smiled and thanked them, because every rejection made us more determined. I used to go home after meetings, sit in silence, and think, am I wrong? Am I chasing something that doesn't exist? But the next morning, I would wake up with even more fire. I told my team, we will prove them wrong. Not by talking, but by building. I remember when one of our biggest challenges came, eBay entered China. They were huge, powerful, global, and well-funded. People said, "Jack, it's over. You can't compete with eBay." But I told my team, we are not eBay. We are Alibaba. They may be stronger, but we are faster. They may be bigger, but we understand China better. And so, we focused not on beating eBay, but on serving our users better. We localized everything. We simplified the interface. We spoke the language of small shop owners. While eBay was treating China like another market, we treated China like our home. We didn't try to copy Silicon Valley. We built something made for Chinese businesses, with Chinese values, Chinese service, Chinese thinking. And slowly, people began to trust us. They saw that we weren't just trying to make money. We were trying to help. Our users became our supporters. Our supporters became our marketers. And Alibaba began to grow. One order, then two, then hundreds. We celebrated every single milestone like it was a victory. Because it was. Every success came after 10 failures. Every breakthrough came after dozens of sleepless nights. There were times when we couldn't pay salaries. Times when we shared one bowl of noodles between 3 people. But we never stopped believing. In those days, leadership wasn't about knowing everything. It was about protecting the hope. I didn't lead with knowledge. I led with heart. I told my team, we may not be the smartest, but we are the most united. And I believed in hiring people who were better than me. People say, "Jack, how did you build such a strong team?" My answer is simple. I hired people not because of what they had done, but because of what they were willing to do. I wasn't afraid of people smarter than me. I welcomed them. My job as a leader was to give them space, trust them, and let them shine. Alibaba didn't grow because of me alone. It grew because of hundreds of people who gave their soul to something bigger than themselves. They worked through failure, fought through doubt, and stayed when things were falling apart. And I always told them, we're not building a company, we're building a movement. We're proving that China can create, innovate, and lead. Eventually, after years of hardship, we started to attract attention. Investors who once rejected us came back. Partners who laughed at us asked to collaborate. People who doubted us started writing articles about our success. But by then, we had learned something important. We didn't need validation. We didn't need applause. What we needed was to stay focused, to keep serving, to never forget where we started. Because success can make you forget. It can make you arrogant. But I always reminded my team, remember the apartment, remember the empty room, remember the nights we cried and still showed up the next morning. That's what built Alibaba. Not luck, not talent, not miracles. Just belief, hard work, and a team that refused to quit. If you're trying to build something, a business, a dream, a new life, remember this. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start. You need to keep going when others stop. You need to keep believing when the world says you're crazy. And one day, you'll look back and realize every impossible thing you faced made you who you are. Looking back at the journey, I realized that most of the wisdom I have today didn't come from winning. It came from losing, from falling, from being misunderstood, criticized, underestimated, and humiliated. People see the success of Alibaba, and they think I was always confident, always visionary, always knew what I was doing. But the truth is, I stumbled my way through most of it. I learned how to lead not from books or MBAs, but from pain, rejection, and trial by fire. There were so many times when I didn't know what decision to make. I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't understand how to scale operations. I didn't even know how to motivate a large team. I was just a former English teacher leading a group of young, passionate, confused people who believed in a dream none of us really understood fully. But that's where the first great lesson came. You don't need to know everything to lead. You just need to care. I learned that leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the one who believes when everyone else is afraid. It's about being the one who holds the team together when things fall apart. In the early days of Alibaba, we had no money to hire top talent. So I hired people with heart, people who were willing to work hard, learn fast, and never give up. I looked for attitude, not resumes. I told them, we are not here to make a quick buck. We are here to build something that lasts. And as Alibaba grew and we faced more complexity, I had to keep evolving. I learned to listen more and talk less. I learned to admit when I was wrong. I learned that as a leader, sometimes your job is not to have all the answers. It's to ask the right questions. Another lesson I learned was about failure. We failed so many times. We launched products that flopped. We made decisions that cost us money. We partnered with people who betrayed us. And in those moments, I wanted to hide. I wanted to disappear. But every failure taught me something. Failure taught me humility. It reminded me that no matter how big we become, we are still vulnerable. We are still learning. I started seeing failure not as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of growth. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. If everything is going well, you're playing too safe. That's the hard truth. I've also learned that competition is never about destroying your enemy. It's about understanding them. When we went up against eBay, many people expected us to fight dirty, to attack them in the media, to play aggressive. But I said no. Let's just serve our customers better. Let's win by being more human, more helpful, more connected. And that worked. People supported us not because we were the biggest, but because we were the most authentic. Another lesson: money is important, but it should never be the reason you start. When you chase money, you'll give up the first time it doesn't come. But when you chase purpose, you'll keep going even when you're broke, even when you're tired, even when people laugh at you. I started Alibaba not because I wanted to be a billionaire, but because I wanted to help small businesses in China. I had friends who owned shops and factories and couldn't reach customers outside their cities. I thought, if we can connect them to the world, their lives will change. That mission kept me going when everything else fell apart. When you build something for others, success comes as a byproduct. Purpose drives persistence, and persistence wins. Over the years, I've learned the importance of long-term thinking. Most people want quick results. They start something today and expect success tomorrow. But real growth takes time. When we started Alibaba, we told ourselves we were building for at least 80 years. We were not in a rush. We focused on getting better, not just bigger. I always told my team, don't look at stock prices. Don't obsess over quarterly reports. Focus on the people. Focus on the product. Focus on making something so useful that people can't live without it. Another lesson that shaped me deeply was about ego. As success grew, so did the noise. People started calling me a genius, a visionary, a business master. But I knew that the moment I started believing all that, I would stop learning. Ego is the enemy of progress. The world doesn't need more arrogant leaders. It needs humble ones, the kind who remember where they came from. I remind myself every day that I was the guy who got rejected by KFC. I was the guy who failed math. I was the guy no one believed in. And even now, with all the achievements, I'm still learning, still listening, still hungry. I also learned that building a company is not just about strategy. It's about people. The culture you create will either lift you or destroy you. At Alibaba, we built a culture of trust, transparency, and teamwork. We celebrated failures as learning opportunities. We encouraged people to speak up, to challenge ideas, to take risks. We weren't afraid of conflict. We used it to grow. I told my team, treat this company like your home. Protect it, respect it, and take care of each other. And because of that, our people stayed. They fought for the mission. They gave their best, not because we paid the most, but because they felt like they belonged. Loyalty cannot be bought. It has to be earned through leadership and love. There were also personal lessons I had to face. As the company grew, I had less time for family, for health, for reflection. There were times I felt lonely at the top. People expect you to be strong all the time, to have answers, to be perfect. But I learned that vulnerability is not weakness. It's human. I started opening up more. I told my team when I was tired. I told them when I was scared. And in return, they showed up stronger. They stepped up. Because when a leader is real, people trust deeper. One of the most surprising lessons I learned was that sometimes success can be harder to manage than failure. When things are going wrong, people stick together. But when money starts flowing, when media starts praising, when fame enters the room, that's when ego, greed, and comfort start poisoning the culture. I had to protect the company from becoming arrogant. I had to remind myself and my team, we are still students. We are still servants. Our job is not to sit on a throne, but to build a better world. And through it all, perhaps the greatest lesson I've learned is this: never give up. No matter how many times you fall, how many people say no, how many nights you spend doubting yourself, keep going, because the people who change the world are not the smartest or the richest. They are the ones who refuse to stop. I wasn't born special. I failed more times than I succeeded, but I kept showing up, and in the end, that made all the difference. If I can do it, a skinny teacher with bad math and broken English, so can you. The lessons I learned came at a cost, but I would pay that price again, because those hard lessons built not just a company, but a man who finally believed in himself. As I sit quietly today, far from the noise of boardrooms and headlines, I often ask myself what truly matters. Was it the billions we made? The IPO? The headlines? The fame? Maybe all of those were milestones. But they were not the destination. They were not the reason I started, and they are not the legacy I hope to leave behind. Because in the end, all of it, the success, the empire, the recognition, is temporary. What lasts is the impact, the lives you touch, the people you inspire, the hope you plant in the hearts of those who feel small, forgotten, or incapable. My real legacy is not Alibaba. My real legacy is proving that an ordinary person, someone with no money, no connections, no perfect English, someone rejected over and over again, can still rise. That is what I want young people to remember. That it's not about who you are today, but who you dare to become. I want them to know that greatness doesn't come from privilege. It comes from persistence. It comes from standing back up one more time than you fall. It comes from serving something bigger than your ego. I look back and I see a man who was once laughed at for dreaming too big, and now I smile, not because I proved them wrong, but because I stayed true to what I believed, even when no one else could see it. And now, when young entrepreneurs ask me for advice, I don't talk about business models or stock prices. I tell them stay humble, stay hungry, and stay human. You don't need to be the smartest. You just need to care more than most. You don't need to be born a genius, but you must be willing to work harder, dream bigger, and fail faster. The world doesn't need more rich people. The world needs more people who give others the courage to try. That's what I hope to leave behind. I've seen people with nothing become leaders. I've seen villages transformed because one person dared to believe. I've seen employees who joined Alibaba as interns grow into visionaries who now lead teams of thousands. And all of this reminds me, the greatest thing you can do in life is to unlock the potential in others. Leadership is not about how far you go, it's about how far you help others reach. That is success. I used to think that changing the world meant doing something big, something dramatic. But now I know. It's about doing something meaningful, consistently, quietly, with love. It's in the way you speak to someone when they fail. It's in the patience you show when someone makes a mistake. It's in the belief you give to someone who's about to quit. That is what creates change. And I've learned that your true value is not in your title, but in your contribution. Not in what you take, but what you give. People won't remember how much money you made. They will remember how you made them feel. I want to be remembered as the man who made people feel that they were capable of more than they believed. I want people to say, if Jack could do it, maybe I can too. That's all. That's enough. Because I've come to understand that happiness is not in accumulation, it's in appreciation. There were times I had nothing, and I was still happy. There were times I had everything, and I still felt empty. So I started to ask myself, what is success if you have no peace? What is growth if you lose yourself? And that's when I made a decision to step back, to give space to the next generation, to become a teacher again. Because teaching was always my first love. Not because I knew everything, but because I loved seeing others grow. And in that, I found my peace. People think stepping down from Alibaba was hard, but actually, it felt right. Because my goal was never to be king. My goal was to spark something that others could carry forward. And they have. My team is stronger than ever, smarter, bolder, kinder, and I couldn't be prouder. I look at them and I know, the dream is safe, the mission is alive, and that gives me more joy than any prophet ever could. So now, my message to anyone reading this is simple: live your life with courage. Don't let fear decide your future. Don't wait for permission to dream. Don't try to be perfect. Just try to be real. People connect with authenticity, not perfection. And when you start being real, you'll attract people who lift you, who see you, who fight beside you. Find your tribe. Build your team. Lead with love. And never forget, the world may not believe in you at first, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you believe in yourself long enough for them to catch up. Every great journey starts with doubt. Every success story begins with rejection. But if you keep moving forward, if you keep learning, if you keep giving, the world will make room for your greatness. Just don't quit. Promise me that, because I didn't. And now, I get to share this story with you. And maybe one day, you'll share yours with someone else. And they'll rise because of it. That's how we build a better world. Not alone, but together, one believer at a time. So dream proudly, rise relentlessly, and lead with heart. Because in the end, it's not about what you build. It's about who you become.